morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is May 6th, 2025. It's so good to see all of you here. It is day 578 since October 7th. It is broadcast 1297. Thanks, Penny. It's good to see all of you here. We raise each other up by saying good morning. We learn some Torah and face the world. So Lisa and David, good to see you. Tara, Boker Tov, Linda and Lisa, I hope that you and yours are safe and well. Jonathan and Lydia. Lydia, your daughter's having another surgery this morning, sending her and you all of our prayers. Karen and Jennifer, Janice, good morning. Arlene, Deborah and Amy, Chana, it's good to see you. Chana, I'm sorry you've been sick. Glad you're feeling a little bit better. Welcome back. Refuah Shlema. Deborah and Carl, Rosa and Robin, Amy, it's good to see all of you. Okay. Jen, it's good to see you. Hi, Liam. All right, let's take a breath, friends. Sing a bracha. Hi, Corinne and Natalie. Valerie, sending love to you and your daughter in Israel. Fran and Barry, Boker Tov. Hi, Jack. Hi, Julie. Hi, Joyce. All right, here we go. So good morning, everybody. It's good to see all of you. All right, it is broadcast 1297. It is day 578 since October 7th. For those who might be paying attention on my own personal Facebook profile and public page, I, after hearing Ron Segev, a survivor of the Nova Festival massacre on October 7th, after hearing him give testimony this last Sunday, just 2 days ago, I've made it a commitment to share on my personal stuff, personal platforms, testimony from survivors of October 7th, putting out as much of that as I can, choosing one community at a time. I hope that you will join me in amplifying the testimony that is available, that must be heard, must be seen, at the very least, which is not something small, to offer comfort to the survivors, but also to make sure that we bear testimony publicly. So, in all of their names and in hopes, once again, on the 578th day since our beloveds have been home, this is all for them. All of this is for them. Let's learn some Torah today. It's Parshat Acharei Mot and Parshat Kedoshim. We read both of them this week. And I was reviewing the Parsha and remembering just how detailed the sacrifices are in the book of Leviticus. And it can be overwhelming for a modern person, especially someone who identifies strongly within the Jewish tradition, to go back in time and to recognize that our modes of worship are so different today than they were before. And so I wanted to look at the Parsha itself, to look at the function of the ritual of sacrifice and consider what it might mean for us. And so, chapter 16, verse 21 of the book of Leviticus reads in the Hebrew, "V'samach Aaron et shtei yadav al rosh ha'sa'ir hachai, v'yitvada alav et kol avonot b'nei Israel v'et kol pishehem lechol chatotam, v'natan otam al rosh ha'sa'ir v'shilach biad ish iti hamidbara." Aaron would lay both of his hands, literally visamach, the same word as we use smicha. When someone becomes a rabbi, we invest them and we physically place hands on their shoulders, sometimes on their heads, to give them the blessing of this new title, this authority. Aaron would lay both of his hands upon the head of the live goat and confess over it all of the sins and transgressions of the Israelites, whatever those sins were, putting them on the head of the goat, and it shall be sent off to the wilderness through a designated agent. The goat would carry on it all the sins to an inaccessible region, and the goat would be set free in the wilderness. And one of the things that is really powerful for us to consider here is what was placed on the head of the goat? The sins, not the people, meaning this was an attempt, and I owe this insight to Rabbi Luciana Liederman, who is a wonderful rabbi and teacher at the Jewish Theological Seminary, to separate the sin from the people so that the shame can be removed and the people could regain perspective. Important for us to recognize that this is a moment of deep vulnerability. And so what we do over and over, friends, in a modern way, is not so different actually from the original intention of those sacrifices. The sacrifice was a religious leader acknowledging the mistakes of the community for the sake of gaining perspective. And this is what I would offer to all of us. I would offer us the chance to think very clearly, even in the midst of the pain, friends, that we continue to feel. We acknowledge that accountability is a traditional Jewish modality, and only through the gaining of perspective can we possibly try to do better, which is why it is so powerful to see Tzahal, the IDF, do the work of investigation through really studying the failures of October 7th, and why it is so painful to see the government of Israel at the moment refusing to do a study of what took place on October 7th. It's not, Adrian's asking a good question, should the shame be removed? But there's a difference between shame and guilt. I remember traveling to Ghana with my beloved teacher, Ruth Messenger, when I was a trustee of American Jewish World Service. And we had this very deep conversation about shame, because among the things that becomes clear, especially when you're in Ghana or any of the regions from which human beings were stolen and turned into chattel, chained and sent across the Atlantic slave trade routes. And I remember saying to Ruth, I feel so ashamed. And she said, why? And I was talking about how, the banks that I use in the United States, at the time it was a mortgage or a lease, I don't know if they supported the slave trade or if the current practices that they continue to utilize further amplify the wrongnesses of Jim Crow or the new Jim Crow, or if they participate in prisons for profit. I remember thinking about shame in a very deep way, and exactly as Robin is pointing out, the difference between shame and responsibility is incredibly important. That's precisely what Ruth said to me. She said the question is not, do you feel shame? Because shame paralyzes, and it doesn't do anything for anyone. And the public recitation of shame doesn't really do anything, but accountability does, responsibility does, and as the great teacher, Rabbi Abram Joshua Heschel, famously taught, in a free society, some are guilty, all are responsible. And this is something to take to heart, especially in this moment, because of course we are still feeling the reverberations and the pain of October 7th, and that says nothing about the responsibility we all bear, especially those in positions of leadership, on the 578th day of captivity for 59 beloveds, some of whom we pray are still alive, for us to bring them home now is an exercise of accountability. Shame is a complicated and paralyzing emotion. It has its place. Responsibility activates the human component in history to change course and to take responsible action. We are always called to do that. And as we see in this week's Parsha, we have always thought that. When Aaron laid his hands on the sacrificial goat, he placed the sins on the goat and the community was witness, which means this is an articulation of mistake. We as a community are responsible. What do we do now? This is how Rabbi Luciana Liederman writes about this. And I'll just share her 2 paragraphs. Such transformation, by transferring the sins of Israel onto the animal and sending it into the wilderness, the priest creates a space between the community and their transgressions, giving them perspective and allowing them to honestly confront their mistakes. The self-conscious emotions of shame and guilt are deeply correlated with one's sense of pride. The trap of shame can produce depression, but it can also lead to what scholar Jessica Tracy calls hubristic pride, a pride that is all about arrogance and egotism. Guilt, on the other hand, can feed into what Tracy calls authentic pride, a pride that is imbued with a sense of agency and that moves us to work hard towards our ideals. Friends, I invite us on day 578 since October 7th to take a moment and try to gain perspective. Yes, that was done to us. We do not bear responsibility for our own wounds. And we are responsible for now, for making decisions that, first of all, protect our people more effectively and show that we take our own values of self-defense and also humanism very seriously, and that the decisions we make from this point on demonstrate a communal sense of accountability and responsibility. I pray that these values are in the heart, minds, souls, and legislative processes of all leaders, because we can't go backward in time and shame paralyzes us, but responsibility can help those vulnerable to every decision we are about to make. May we be so blessed, friends, to be part of an effort to do better. In the name of all those, certainly all those that we lost, and especially, urgently, in the name of the 59 beloveds who we desperately need home. Let's send our hearts to the east. Kol od balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulefatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion tzofia od lo avda tikvateinu התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון Yerushalayim. Bring them home now. Am Yisrael Chai. See you tomorrow, my friends.